Welcome to Things You May or May Not Believe Abusers Have Said, aka the Can't Be Broken podcast, where we are shining light on the darkness that is domestic violence and abuse. I am your favorite confidence pusher, M Boogie in this thing. And we got 3 simple goals: to educate anyone who has never been in an abusive ship, to empower everyone who has survived an abusive ship, and to encourage anyone who is still currently in an abusive ship. Now, keep your hands, arms, legs inside the vehicle at all times because we about to take off and it just might be a bumpy ride. Today, blessed assurance. This is what I want to talk to y'all about today. Have you ever heard of this thing called double standard? Of course you have. Now, I'm not pulling this up because this applies to all cases. I am pulling this up because I just want to highlight and piggyback off what we discussed a little bit last week on last week's episode. Something came across my feed and I had to investigate. So, check this out. This is in South Carolina. June 30th, 2026, Ms. Josephine Scott, age 75, has been charged with attempted murder and possession of a weapon while committing a crime. And this is in connection with the shooting that took place inside of her home. She shot her husband in both legs. She's being charged with attempted murder and possession of a weapon while committing a crime. She's being charged with attempted murder for shooting her husband in the legs. 1 leg, 2 leg. 1 knee, 2 knee. 2 shots. Now, for some reason, they're emphasizing the fact that she's on an oxygen tank, almost as if to use that as a means to say she was a little weak and all she could do was make it as far as up his body is to his knees or his legs. Okay. This is in South Carolina. What county is this? This is Timmonsville, South Carolina, which is, hold on, I just had it. Florence County, South Carolina, okay? Now, another article that I found in Summerville, South Carolina, which is published on September 25th, 2025, so not even a year ago. A man has been arrested and charged after he shot his wife in the face during an incident in their home on September 18th, 2025. He shot his wife in the face. Mr. Billy Clyde Portis Jr. is being charged. Here are his charges. He's being charged with domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature and possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime. Okay. Both of these incidences took place in South Carolina, less than 1 year apart. It doesn't say his age on here. But here's what it does say. During the investigation, the victim, so she survived a gunshot wound to the face, told officers she and her husband had been engaged in a verbal altercation when Portis, the husband, threatened her with a firearm and then shot her. The victim later advised detectives that the couple had been arguing about allegations of infidelity when the shooting occurred. Now, when the police officers arrived to the home, they made contact with Mr. Billy Clyde Portis, and he told them he had accidentally shot his wife while cleaning his firearm. After further investigation, that's when they decided to arrest and charge him with domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature and a possession of a firearm during a commission of a violent crime. Now, you wonder why I keep repeating these charges. Okay, let's go back. Miss Josephine is charged with attempted murder and possession of a weapon while committing a crime in connection with a shooting that took place in her home. For shooting her husband in the legs 2 times, she's charged with attempted murder. Billy shot his wife in the face, and he's being charged in the same state with domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature and a possession of a firearm. Now, I get what you're saying. You're like, okay, so what's the charges? What does that even mean? I'm glad you asked. So I looked it up because I'm like, all right, we got attempted murder. I'm curious, what is the serve? Like, how much time are you going to get served if you're convicted of attempted murder? And we have domestic violence of a high crime. How much time can you get served for domestic violence of a high crime? Let's go with Mr. Billy Portis first. Hold on, let me pull it up. Pull it up. If convicted, now this is AI overview of all of the collected data that they've pulled from the internet. If convicted of both domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature and a possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime in South Carolina, a defendant faces up to 25 years in prison with a minimum of 5 years mandatory time served. Now, let me break that down to you. The domestic violence of a high and aggravated nature sentence is a penalty of maximum 20 years. But because he got charged with 2 separate things, the additional 5 years came in because of the possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime. Okay, so we're looking at 25 years maximum for Mr. Billy Porter for having an argument with his wife and shooting his wife in the face in South Carolina. Now, when I go back and I look up how much time is served in South Carolina if charged with attempted murder and possession of a weapon while committing a crime. Again, AI did its thing, scourged all of the things from the internet, and this is what it came up with. Remember, Mr. Billy Porter shot his wife in the face during an argument, and he's charged with domestic violence of a high crime. Miss Josephine shot her husband in the legs during an argument. She's charged with attempted murder. I'm going to let that one marinate in your mental for a minute. But let's get to it because you like, okay, I get it. I see that he's going to get a maximum of 25 years for shooting his wife in the face. How much does Josephine get? In South Carolina, if convicted for these charges, it carries a combined maximum sentence of 35 years with a mandatory of minimum of 5 years served without parole. Okay, so for the attempted murder charge, Miss Josephine could be charged and convicted, and she could get up to 30 years in prison because she shot her husband in the legs. The additional 5 years again comes because of the possession of the weapon during a violent crime charge. Why are you bringing this up, Em? Remember last week I was saying that women who are in jail for killing their husbands or killing a man, 90% of them are in jail because they were killing the man that was abusing them. And remember how we went through and we talked about one guy who had killed his wife and his unborn child, and her body was found floating in the backyard pool, and he got I think it was a maximum of 17 years, something like that, 15 years. Then there was another man who cut his wife's head off. He got no jail time. 5 years he served in like a psych ward or something, and now he's out on the streets, supervised. But when a woman who decided to shoot at her husband, she fired a warning shot. So let me correct that. She didn't shoot at her husband. She fired a warning shot after he had already put a gun to her head. She fired a warning shot in the wall. She got 15 years for not even killing the person. Or was it 20? You got to go back and watch last week's episode because I don't want to get the statistics skewed. But here's the thing that I want to focus on today and last week. The question is so often brought up, why in the world don't you fight back? Man, if somebody was to do that to me, I would put a gun to his head. For women, it just doesn't work the same. Because even if you don't shoot to kill, you still get charged with attempted murder. But as a man, you can literally shoot your wife in the face. And the only reason we know what really happened is because she survived a face shot. He told police, I was cleaning my gun and it accidentally went off, Mr. Officer. And still, with the evidence of his wife saying we were in an altercation, we were in an argument talking about infidelity, and he shot me in the face. They charged him with domestic violence, high domestic violence, aggravated, whatever, which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years. Whereas Miss Josephine, who's 75 and didn't shoot her husband anywhere. I mean, did she shoot the femoral artery? Did she put the gun on both femoral arteries and pull the trigger? Now that's attempted murder because you know he bleeding out. But she shot him in the legs. And according to some of the sources that I've read, in the knees. And she got charged with attempted murder, which is a maximum of 30 years. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to get the max sentence for either one of these crimes that were committed. But what I am saying is, can we pay attention to what's going on here? Both couples were in an argument. We don't know the history or the background of either one of them. But for some reason, these women had guns. Or no, for some reason, there are guns in the house. One woman didn't have a gun, one woman had a gun. We don't know the full background, so we don't know if there's actual trails of abuse from either side. But let's just pretend that there's not, and this is the first incident. Why is it that the woman is getting an attempted murder charge for a kneecap, and the man is getting domestic violence, high domestic violence of aggravated assault for a face shot? Why is it that the woman has the potential of a max sentence of 35 years for a kneecap, and the man only has a maximum sentence of 25 years for a face shot? There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up about the guy, and he got charged. So this is really interesting to me. I clicked on one of the links, Susan E. Williams, Domestic Law, Articles of South Carolina Law. Domestic violence in South Carolina, fines, penalties, and jail time degrees, plus what happens after an arrest. So this is basically a breakdown of what you can expect if you know or you don't know. I'm just going to read this. Domestic violence cases move fast in South Carolina, and the decisions you make in the first few days can shape everything that follows. You'll find what qualifies as domestic violence, how charges are graded, what happens after an arrest, and practical steps to protect yourself. Quick note on terminology. South Carolina replaced the older term criminal domestic violence with degree-based domestic violence charges. You'll still hear criminal domestic violence used informally in court. It's DV by degree. All right, so here are the fines: domestic violence fines, penalties, and jail time in South Carolina. For a quick overview, domestic violence third degree is a misdemeanor, up to 90 days in jail, and a court-imposed fine. Domestic violence of the second degree is a misdemeanor, up to 3 years in prison and fines. Domestic violence of first degree in South Carolina is a felony and up to 10 years in prison with fines. Domestic violence of high and aggravated nature is a felony, so it's the highest form of domestic violence that you can charge them with, and up to 20 years in prison. Now, just below this summary of what this article is about, it says, and I quote, "If you're trying to minimize domestic violence fines, penalties, and jail time in South Carolina, speak with and this is hyperlinked, domestic violence defense lawyer as early as possible." You understand what I'm saying? Now, this right here is for both the men who experience abuse and the women who experience abuse. At this moment, I'm not even bringing up the fact that they're more willing to charge a woman a greater sentence for a seemingly lesser crime than a man for a seemingly greater crime. Have you been charged with criminal domestic violence? Meet Susan. Consider a domestic violence lawyer who has a prior experience of being a designated attorney that prosecuted domestic violence cases at the Dorchester County Solicitor's Office. However, today, Susan E. Williams is an attorney who defends those facing domestic violence charges. Susan, a woman, has made it her business to now defend anyone who is facing domestic violence charges. And the reason I pause here is not to minimize the abuse that men experience, but to highlight the fact that most abusers are men, which means most of her cases, she's defending a man who is being charged with abusing a woman. Then she says, but first, let's cover some important facts surrounding domestic violence charges. In South Carolina, it's important to understand that it is not uncommon for someone to falsely accuse an ex-spouse or a household member of domestic violence out of anger, jealousy, or spite. This is true. In fact, some people actually attempt to use a domestic violence charge to gain an advantage in family court case, divorce, or child custody, for example, also true. Unfortunately, the impact of domestic violence charges is oftentimes not fully realized until the family has been separated physically, is financially strapped, and can no longer have contact with one another. What's even worse, Susan says, the alleged victim finds out that they do not have the authority to drop the charges. Whatever the case, you're here because you need a domestic violence lawyer to fight your charges and prove your innocence. People in Somerville, Goose Creek, Hampton County, Jasper County, and Charleston turn to domestic violence lawyer Susan E. Williams when they are hoping to avoid jail time, minimize fines, avoid travel restrictions, maintain their right to bear arms, avoid losing their concealed weapons permit, and avoid having a wrongful conviction for domestic violence on their permanent criminal record or rap sheet. If this is you, then you deserve a domestic violence lawyer in the low country like Susan E. Williams. This is definitely not a paid advertisement for Miss Susan E. Williams. It's just to highlight the fact that there are women out there, and I understand that there is an intention. Do I know her heart? I don't. Can I agree that there are many cases where exes, people who are mad about whatever their relationship fell apart, that they falsely accuse people of being abusers. However, there are so many more cases where there are actual real abusers who have someone's tried to charge them and they got afraid and they backed out. Someone didn't even think to charge them because they didn't think it was going to stick anyways. Or someone does charge them and they hire attorneys like Susan E. Williams, who makes it her point to make sure that you avoid jail time if you're charged with domestic violence, minimize fines if you're charged with domestic violence, avoid travel restrictions if you're charged with domestic violence. Hold up, hold your horses, maintain your right to bear arms if you're charged with domestic violence. Oh my goodness, listen, if you don't know, when there is a gun present in a household and domestic abuse takes place, the likelihood that the person who's being victimized is going to die within the next year, because the chances of it has increased 500%. And here we have attorneys who want you to understand that they will fight for you if you're being charged with domestic violence, for you to keep your freedom and your right to bear arms and carry a concealed weapon, even if in fact you have used that concealed weapon to abuse the person you said you loved. I don't know what her win record is, and this isn't even to bash her because there are plenty of people out there, but based off the conversations that I've had with a lot of people who have been victimized by abusers, who have been abused, who have had to go to court, and a lot of them they went to court against had a lot of money. I imagine while we got access to resources, I imagine that it's a pretty lucrative business. So let's just find, okay, wait, my laptop's being a little slow. It's being a little slow. Touchy, touchy. Okay, let's see here. Oh, hold on, y'all. Oh my gosh. Wait. Take me back. Take me back. Okay, hang on. I got distracted and sidetracked because MSN popped up and I need to see if I can see this headline again. Hold up. Wait a minute. Daggone. That was a good headline. That was a darn good headline, and I don't see it anymore. It was about a mom being charged with something in Florida. Let me see if I can find it. I know you like, what is you doing? We supposed to be focusing. Listen. Hold on. Okay, never mind. She actually does need to be charged with this. So we can go back to focusing on what I was just checking. Anyways, I wanted to see um what's the retainer fee for a domestic violence lawyer in South Carolina. Okay, retainers for domestic violence cases in South Carolina typically range from $2,500 to $5,000 for criminal defense, and generally $3,000 to $10,000 if it's the matter involves a family court, such as divorce or a restraining order. The exact amount depends on the severity of the charges and the attorney's hourly rates, which are usually $150 to $500 an hour. Very good. Very good. Retainer fees for Summerville, South Carolina attorney Ms. Susan E. Williams typically range from $1,000 to $4,000, depending on your specific legal needs. For criminal defense retainers, commonly $1,500 to $3,000. If you want to provide details, the type of legal issue you're facing, she can help you with that. And the exact hourly rate for Summerville, South Carolina criminal defense attorney Susan E. Williams is not publicly published. However, general practice data indicates that South Carolina criminal defense lawyers typically bill between $196 to $492 per hour, with any additional fees. So there's that. I'm not gonna hold y'all long. I just thought it was quite interesting because I saw this Josephine case pop up on my timeline today, and I said, let me do a little digging because I'm just so curious. This happened, and they charged this woman with attempted murder. Let me make sure I got my facts straight, though. Let me look up one more thing because this is what we doing. One more thing. Okay, it doesn't say. It keeps saying legs. I just wanted to see what part of the legs, because it could be the ankles. It could be the knees. It could be the thighs. We just don't know. I'm very curious as to where she shot him in the legs that warranted an attempted murder charge. When Mr. Billy over here got away with shooting his wife in the face. One more thing. If you haven't noticed, crimes that are labeled domestic violence crimes, which mostly are men against women, these crimes carry lesser sentences and lesser charges than crimes that would be committed the same way against a stranger. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to let you sit on that. Let that one marinate in your mental for a minute, because what we doing? Anyways, I just want to say this. Thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, because we are going to shine light on this buffoonery and the shenanigans that is known as domestic violence and abuse. If you are here, I appreciate you. Keep showing up. Keep sharing love. Keep shining your light. In the meantime, in between time, until next week, we are gone. Pew, 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 pew.